Welcome to the Chillness Room, episode 21. I'm Kira Schaefer and took a little hiatus, maybe a couple weeks off here. And, of course, like as soon as I start recording, I hear some lawn mowers in the background and all this stuff. And man, I'll tell you what, that really makes me tense. I don't know about you, but it's like I'm competing with other noises around me. Let me see if I can have you hear it. Hold on. Okay. And then, of course, oh my gosh, it just like so aggravating. Anyway, so definitely not chill, but that's okay. So moving on, here's the topic I'm going to talk about today. So as you guys know, I've been in perimenopause and I've been reflecting on my life, and my life has primarily been a helpmate to people who in personal development who may have been struggling, who might have had a hard time. Some of it I've learned along the way, where I work with somebody and they come to me or present a problem that I've never heard of before. This is mainly early 20s, early 30s and stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's so fascinating. Let me see if I can figure out how to help with it. But there's one thing that is like historically challenging for me. So first off, I'm definitely a cheerleader. Like I want what you want for your life. I want you to be happy and fulfilled and enjoy everything good. That's like my thing. It's who I am. If you ask anyone probably that knows me well, they will say she tries to make you believe in yourself. she, she she does her best. I mean, I had one friend say, they said, yeah, I go over to Kira's house and she makes me believe that I'm an artist and that I can stand on my head and do advanced yoga poses and all this, which I can't even do that, but I have like this yoga bench thing where you can go upside down and that can be really, really scary, by the way. And I can have healthy positive relationships and everything is going to go right for me and I can sing and like i'm I am that person. I want you to believe in you as much as I believe in you. So when I meet up with someone who is just constantly arguing for their limitations, you know I'm constantly arguing for their abilities, and they're constantly arguing for their limitations. Well, this isn't right and that isn't right and that's not working and this didn't happen and I haven't done this and da, 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 and I've got to do this and that and da, 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 da. And this is historic. This is I've worked with authors, I've worked with clients, hundreds at least, in those two groups, not hundreds of authors, but many authors, um, who specifically have the problem of arguing for their limitation. What do I mean by that? I think I gave a pretty good example. It's just that any advice you give, they're going to counter it with something else. That's usually coming from the ego that wants to keep them stuck in victimhood, to keep them out of their ability to make choices. Even the wrong choice is still a choice. And sometimes this part of us that says, no, I'm not going to make any choice and I'm going to stay in this place for as long as I possibly can, because there's a part of us that knows that once a choice is made, we don't get to argue for our limitations anymore, which isn't actually true. We can always argue for our limitations, right? We can have that in our back pocket for as long as we need to. I do. I absolutely do. But now I've gotten at least to the point where I'm like, yeah, because I don't want to. I'll be perfectly honest. If I don't argue for my limitations. I just say I don't wanna. And that seems to also work very well for some people. Oh my goodness. But for real though, that leaf blower person outside of our apartment is literally leaf blowing the same spot, and there are no leaves on it, the ground. why are they doing that? Why is this happening to me? I'm going to play the victim card here, but it sounds like maybe they're wrapping it up. So, uh, anyway, what I have found is, since this is a twofold situation, is that when we have one person that's a cheerleader and we have another person that's the one arguing for their limitations of how they can't be cheer-led, right, into feeling better or doing something different or any of that kind of stuff. That's a choice, so if we really do believe that people are allowed to have their choices, then you know we get to then choose how we're showing up in the relationship. One person can't constantly be lifting the other one up there. And then if there is that kind of situation, you have a very different dynamic. So if it's a friendship, that's one thing. But then you can also have a love addict and a love avoidant situation. That's Pia Melody, Facing Love Addiction, if you ever want to check that out. And so, it's like there could be that kind of thing, where some people want to argue for the limitation, but they don't actually want any help at all. And then there are people who are cheerleading who are just kind of also stuck in their own loop of, how come this person isn't letting me cheerlead them? How come this person isn't letting me love them? They're avoiding that connection I'm so willing to help them see. So there's that kind of thing happening sometimes in relationships. And so, yeah, we just decide, how do we want to actually, do we want to be in this friendship or relationship or experience or coaching scenario? And then do we say to our, whether it's a professional setting or whether it's a friendship or relationship, and say, hey, you know what? I feel like there's a mismatch here. Whether it's in coaching specifically, it could be a mismatch where you say, you know what? I'm not sure I'm the right person to be helping you with this particular problem or situation anymore. I think we got to a good place where I feel like we've gotten to this threshold, and this is a good threshold, and I might recommend that you go to XYZ person because they may actually be able to help you a little bit farther down the road, and maybe help you get to the next threshold. It's not about abandoning your clients. It's not about abandoning your friends or relationships or any of that stuff. It's about preserving your own peace. And if you're in a client situation with someone where they're paying you and you feel like you aren't being effective with them any longer, it is your obligation to release them from that contract. And I've done that before. I've paid people money back from a therapeutic standpoint when I felt like there was nothing more that I could do, where they bought a coaching package or something like that. And I've said, I have to complete this with you because this is not moving forward in a way that I feel will be helpful for you. I've never had a problem doing that because ultimately that would be my choice. And so I would never hold anybody responsible or obligated or anything like that. So there's that. Then you have like friendships where it's always that one-sided thing. They're coming to you with their problems. It's always a struggle. You give them your thoughts, your help, your advice, the things that they have asked for. They never ever do it. They never follow through. And so then they come to you again the next day or week or month with the exact same problem. Well, did you do the thing that I suggested? No. Okay. Are you willing to do the thing that I suggested? Well, XYZ, excuse. And then you say, well, I don't know that this situation, that our time together is best served by talking about this particular situation. Maybe you need to talk to somebody else about it, and who can actually help you with it, because I feel like, I don't know if I want to be a part of how this is all playing out, if if what I'm saying isn't really being utilized, and that's on me, because I have an expectation that you actually utilize the advice that I give you. I also have an expectation that you take some action in this situation, right? I have an expectation that you do that. And until I can get out of that expectation, I don't think I can talk about this subject with you. And I love you and I appreciate all of the time that we spend together. I just don't know that this is the best thing, right? So we kind of come to terms with, how we want to show up in all of our relationships. Then you have the romantic relationships. And this is where it becomes more maybe in a therapeutic standpoint or setting, where you may do couples counseling or something like that, or other kinds of coaching work with someone, where essentially you are in a position where you, in a safe place where you can say that kind of thing to your partner. I would hope that you're in a partnership with someone and relationship with somebody where you can say, hey, I can't do this topic anymore. I can't help. I'm not helping. This isn't working. Or we need to talk to somebody to help us get out of these limiting mindset or limiting thought patterns that we have going on. And because when you're in a relationship with somebody romantically, it's very difficult to separate yourself from the outcome of whatever is happening. Let's say it could be money, it could be about your kids, or it could be about other family members. It could be, you know, about, fulfilling lifelong goals or dreams or desires or aspirations. It could be about a move. It could be about money. It could be about anything, work. And so it's a little bit harder, I think, at least for me, it was for a long time, to be in a situation in which I could feel like everything is happening perfectly, and that I'm saying everything perfectly and that they're saying everything perfectly. And we're just really giving each other space and understanding each other in our dynamic. And it took personal work as well as group work, as well as um, couples work and all that kind of stuff to make sure that we are evaluating the whatever the situation is clearly. So that's because we're both willing to put in the work. The same thing with if you're in a coupleship and you are both putting in the work. That's different. But if one person puts in the work and the other person is like, oh, look at you go, you're putting in the work, and they're not really willing to do anything different, then that creates a situation in which it's difficult maybe to be able to say, hey, whatever you've got going on, I can't be a part of whatever that is, because I am doing the work and I am willing to see where I'm struggling, and I need to be able to express that to you. So this all started with the concept or idea around someone arguing for another person's ability, and that person is only arguing for their own limitation. And this happens a lot. It happens in all different types of dynamics, all different types of relationships. It can even be co-working relationships, all of that stuff. And for me, since I am very much the cheerleader, and I definitely tell people, I'm like, yes, you can write that book. Yes, you can write that chapter. Yes, you can get out of that negative relationship or friendship or hardship or whatever. Yes, you can do that. Here's how to do all of those things. And then get met with just as much energy of, no, I can't. And you can't tell me otherwise. it's frustrating. And I have also been that person that has argued for my limitation. So I know what both sides of that coin feels like. It feels so challenging. What I love to see is when someone who's been arguing for their limitation finally gets so angry and so frustrated and so just over all of it, just so over all of it, that they go, fine, I'll do what you said and I'll prove you wrong. and and then I'll get to blame you for whatever. Anytime that that's happened, which I love it when that's happened because I've done it myself, um, I would say 99.9% of the time, I'll reserve that fraction of a point just for fun. Um, they've come back and said, yeah, that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. As soon as I sat down, or as soon as I talked to them, or as soon as I had a really good, straight up, intense cry and screamed and yelled into the void, I started to feel a little better. And I started to feel like maybe there was going to be a way out of this problem or situation. And then weirdly, this person came up to me and said such and such. And then I realized, oh, I just have to take this step and it's going to be okay. And it was. I mean, seriously, if I had a nickel, I and it's there's nothing wrong with them. They didn't do a damn thing wrong. Not a damn thing wrong at all. Because if they did, then I have. And I refuse to believe that I've done anything wrong. That's not true. I do have a lot of self-blame in certain areas, but I refuse to believe that taking an action, even if it's the wrong action, is a wrong move, or it has a bad outcome, let's say, and it all depends, all subjective to what a bad outcome is. I'll go into that I think I'll go into that because that's the other thing I think we're afraid of as humans that keep us locked down in making choices. Because remember, making a choice, any choice, even if it's a bad choice, a wrong choice, whatever, making any choice immediately takes us out of victimhood. And it puts us in a problem-solving mode at minimum, right? So it could bring us all the way up the emotional scale into happiness and joy, potentially. Might take a little while, but it could. So we got to get this mindset in us. I certainly know I have to. Was that, but what if I do it wrong? What if I make the wrong move? What if I make the wrong choice and it causes me more suffering? Because if I can sit here and I can say, I'm making no choice, well, then there's no outcome. So I get to stay in my misery for as long as I need to, for as long as I want to. I can stay here indefinitely, as long as the bills are getting paid and there's food on the table and, I'm in relatively good physical condition to the best of my ability. And I'm doing a couple of things that feel relatively okay. I can not do anything and stay in victimhood indefinitely if my basic needs are met. And I will complain to whoever will hear me about my victimhood and how this bad thing is happening, that bad thing's happening, and how I can't seem to get out of XYZ problem. Right? I can stay there all day, every day, for years. And I have personally. So if I look at it like that and I say, all right, well, how do I even have the motivation to make a change if everything I know is status quo and nothing is really shaking the boat? Nothing's really doing anything real. Well, I'm not joyful. I'm not happy. I don't feel peaceful. I don't feel at ease. I don't feel balanced. I don't feel healthy or whole. I don't feel like I can get to the next step. I feel stuck and stymied and cut off from the flow of creation. I feel like I can't seem to get to the next level. And not that I'm striving for it or I have to have more and more and more. None of that. That's all ego stuff. But more so just rather than just a relatively okay feeling sense and everyone around me not wanting to be near me because of me going, I'm always the victim. Instead, to say, wow, all right, well, what choice could I make that might make me uncomfortable, but also might lead to my happiness? All right, so I make that choice, and then I get information, I get feedback, I get an understanding, or I get, ooh, I'm never doing that again. That feels way, way, way worse, or that feels really good. I'm really happy I did that. I sometimes have a problem with reaching out to people, and I was deciding, I was like, I'm going to do a little networking for where I'm going to be moving to. And there was this one person, and I kept seeing his name, and I was like, I feel drawn to him, but I don't know. I don't know if I should contact him. And I was like, I just kept thinking about it, thinking about it. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I sent an email, and he sent me a response back actually really quickly and said, hey, here's my phone number. Call me. And I was like, oh my God, call you. Geez, Louise. I don't know if I want to call you. I don't know you like that. Like, why am I going to, brother, why am I going to call you? And I called him. And I'll tell you what, it was one of the best conversations that I have had in decades. I know you're like, wait a minute, that's not fair, Kira. You've talked to me on the phone recently. And if you're listening to this, I probably have talked to you on the phone recently. No, but it was new and it was interesting and he was fascinating and he really like caused me to evaluate certain things where I was actually staying in victimhood and arguing for my limitation. He made me believe that I could be more, do more, have more, and express more and experience more just in the conversation I had with him. And I did not argue for my limit because as soon as I catch a whiff of somebody being whole, healthy, balanced, and complete, I am like amping that energy up. I want to hear all about them. I want to know about how did they get to that place? How are they capable of maintaining that kind of energy? And even just, can you hear the difference even from when I was talking about one thing to when I'm talking about this conversation that I had with him? The vibe has immediately gone up. But that's not because he's necessarily special. I think he is actually very um, unique and very cool. But every single one of us has that ability to tap in to that. And sometimes we need people who are willing to be that for us. But I'm going to tell you something really, really, truly, and honestly, guys, like really, I want you to hear this. When you encounter a cheerleader, somebody who is arguing for the good things in your life, who is arguing for your ability, who is putting themselves out there and saying, I am so excited for the potentials that you have within you. And I'm so thrilled that you can do anything I can do even better. Anything anyone can do out there that you think is incredible. And you're like, wow, look at what they can. You can do that too, if you want to, or whatever that variation is in your life, like whatever that looks like for you. So you have this, like, you know, you have this cheerleader. And I'm going to tell you something. If you keep arguing for your limitations with this cheerleader, they're going to stop arguing with you. They're going to stop promoting. They're going to stop lifting you up eventually. They're going to stop telling you how amazing you are. They're going to stop because when a cheerleader type personality meets up with that limiting person, it's impossible to hold that thread up indefinitely for another person. That other person has got to take responsibility for themselves around that cheerleader. Or the cheerleader is going to be like, I'm not served here. I'm not being of service here. I'm not helping this situation. I am actually creating more of an imbalance in myself because I have an expectation, perhaps, that this person be different, that this person suddenly shift their idea about themselves, and that if they don't, then maybe I'm doing something wrong. So you see how the dynamic then causes this negativity to come up in the person that is being loving and positive and wanting for your happiness and all of that kind of stuff. So there are some people who can do it indefinitely, and they're just like you, they are bright beaming lights of hope and love and gentleness and kindness, all of that. And they will never burn out. You will never see them because they have released all expectations of the outcomes of another person's experience, and they're just happy as they can be. They're just joyful. And then you have people who are like me, that eventually I will go, I have lost my usefulness in this situation. My usefulness is no longer needed because this person has decided that this is their life and they're not going to be any different. And so until I can evolve to a place where I can say, yeah, I have zero expectation that anyone be different. I just can't do it. Plus, too, when somebody pays me for coaching or something like that, I will not continue working with somebody if the usefulness of our time together has run its course, because I don't take money for, you know, to be ineffective, ineffective, right? I don't do it. I won't do it. I don't like it. I feel like there's an imbalance there. And so not everybody is like that though. And they will keep you on that hook forever. And for me, I don't like taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I don't like taking 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. I don't like that. And I don't like feeling like I'm ever dragging anyone, kicking and screaming into better mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, personal development, health. I don't dig it. It doesn't feel good. And it's one of the things that burnt me out a long time ago. So now I've been doing chillness gatherings, and this has been so fun and effective because one thing is that it's about a nervous system reset. It's about just feeling better and getting clearer, because we're feeling a little bit, even if it's just a little bit better, we feel a little bit better. And so this Saturday, I'm going to be doing another one, and I'm very excited about it because it's so peaceful. I get fed in that space. It's kind of like Reiki energy, where when you are doing Reiki and calling forward that universal life force energy, you may not know what that means, but you can go and look it up if you like. That energy flows through you first, and then once you're full, then it starts to leave to go to your client. So you don't ever have to feel like it's your energy doing the healing or pushing the energy out or doing any of that stuff. It's a flow, and it can happen really fast, within seconds, where you're all of a sudden fully filled with loving, kind, light, loving energy. And then it immediately moves to wherever it's needed on your client or with your client. So you have these kind of situations where you're completely outside of that, out of whatever happens. And so I feel like sometimes with these chillness gatherings that's kind of what is happening. And it's so not about me. It's not about the outcome. It's not about what someone receives or doesn't receive. It's about what is present, just what's present, what's available. And when we do nervous system resets, what's available is just about anything or everything that you might be needing. So I love it. And I'll probably put in the show notes the link to the registration. But it's $8, you know. So I'm going to do it the first weekend of every month. I've done the last couple of months. So I'll do April, then May. And then I'll see where I'm at. But we're enjoying that. And so that gets me completely outside of this. I think you're great. Why don't you think you're great? Instead of, how come you don't see yourself the way that I see you? Or how come you continue to argue for your limitations? I've already told you you're great, you know? Which I think that's very interesting too, is that we believe that words mean anything. Believing that words mean anything to anyone else is silly, because words don't teach, right? Words don't teach. Actions, taking actions, that gives us a lot more information. Fail or succeed, or somewhere in between. We don't know. So I hope you enjoyed this Chillness episode, and I will be talking to you again soon. Take care.